Hey, here we go, and we're live for the pricing clinic. And so I want to talk about a few things. I have your questions here, and of course, you can catch me on Twitter if you want me to talk about your questions on these Monday pricing clinics. You may catch me also on the Monday marketing clinics, which are noon every week at Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. And then after that, I do the pricing clinic. I don't give a specific time on the pricing at this point in time, but currently it's right after either maybe 12:30, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But if you want to ask a question or something you want me to address during these clinics, hit me up on Twitter at Rosh Sillars, and I'm happy to answer your questions. And I have some questions that I've gotten from various sources online, and people ask me. Some people just email me direct, which is just fine, but I prefer to keep it engaged here. You know, catch me on Twitter, catch me here on this channel. If this is your first time, make sure that you subscribe. If you want to catch me live and watch these shows directly and interact with me and ask questions, all you have to do is hit that bell icon and you'll be notified when I go live, and we can connect and help build our photography community. So one of the things that I've been talking more and more about lately is that I'm doing this because this is helpful to help make our photography community healthier. And I want to know how you're making this photography community healthier. Put in your comments below. What are you doing? And that could be mentorship, sharing ideas. Do you put your pricing online? That's a good question. I've known people who have really helped their local industry, photography industry, by putting their pricing online, and just by being a leader is what you're doing. And so there are a number of things we can talk about related to all of this. It's a big area. Making a profitable photography business is a huge topic. Despite that it seems like such a narrow sliver of what we do, you know, we think, oh, this whole business and pricing is just this little sliver of the, no, it's actually majority. You know, the photography is a small part of what we do. The rest is all business. And so that's why I have these questions here to talk about. And let's start with the first question. Again, those of you who are here live, you're welcome to ask questions. And those of you who catch this on the replay, you're more than welcome to put questions in the comments. But right now, let's get into the questions that I have here. And the question that I got received, how much do I charge for my copyright? And as you know, when you click the shutter, you are the proud owner of a copyrighted image. It's just the law. It's the law of the land. And it has value. And I will often remind people, you know, sometimes young photographers or people new to the business say, oh, my copyright isn't that valuable. It's like, then if it doesn't have any value, why do people want it? Right? They wouldn't be asking for it if it had no value. Of course it has value. So, you know, how much do you charge? And I can't tell you, say, okay, well, it is $500 for a copyright. That is not it. I recommend you base it off of a percentage. So some people, the standard I think is 100%. Some people go 50%. I recommend 100%. Some people are more than that. Say, look, my copyright is so valuable, I charge 500%. That's it. No questions. If they want it that badly, that's how much. 100 is pretty normal. So if you charge $1,200 for photos or a series of photographs and they want the copyright, you know, then you can charge 100% on that and be $2,400, for example. Or if it's a $5,000 project, you could charge 10. And if it's that valuable to them, sometimes I say, let me save you some money and offer a better usage. What I'll start doing is I'll ask questions, and that is half the issue. A lot of times people ask for the copyright because they think that's what they need. You know, if a client, you know, if it's personal, if it's a wedding or so forth, I mean, that's personal use. So having the copyright is not even a reason, you know, good at all. I mean, why would anybody for their wedding need the copyrights unless they plan to reprint the images somewhere or resell them? You know, I think for most part, you know, when it comes to your copyright, you know, you can say to your client, look, let me save you some money. How long are you going to need those images? And a lot of times it's like, well, we're going to use them nonstop everywhere for 2 years straight. Okay, well then let me give you 3 years of unlimited usage and I'll price that appropriately and I'll save you money and I won't have to double the price on you for that copyright. So that's what you do. I say 100%. Some people go 50, some people go higher. Okay, next question. And again, those people who are live, you're welcome to ask questions related to your business and photography, pricing your photography. So let's see. Let's talk about, okay. The person likes my per image pricing. It's not my per image. I didn't make up per image pricing, but it's the pricing system that I champion. And they like it, but the client only will do day rates. That's it. They've been around the block a few times, and that's their thing. They want day rates, so all the photographers are the same across the board. What should they do? Well, I've done both things. I've done one. I have said, okay, that's fine, but I'm offering per image pricing. Or I said, okay, here's my day rate. And my day rate is pretty high, and I'll figure it out. I mean, the main thing is as long as I'm not losing money. And you have to make sure you understand your cost of doing business. And look, I am never going to suggest to you that you should lose a great opportunity because your pricing structure is a little bit different from what they requested. Now, if what they are requesting is making you lose money or go way below your cost of doing business, I often will say there's a 20% threshold. So if your cost of doing business is $1,000 a day, you might want to go down to $800. If you're $2,000 a day, go to 16. Fine. Don't go any lower than that, because now you're losing money by working, and you don't want to do that. So understand where your threshold is, your cost of doing business per day, per minute, per hour, whatever it may be best for you, depending on the type of photography that you do. And then, hey, you can play, if it's an opportunity you want, play by their rules. That's fine. As long as you are, again, able to stay in business after you do the shoot. All right. So that's where it's, okay. Next question. Talk about drone photography. Hey, I had a video, my last video was about drone photography and what you should consider in that process. And a lot of it is the same, but there is some different elements to it. I mean, experience and skill with the drone makes a difference. If you're really highly skilled, and I had a little drone that my daughter got me for Christmas, and it was very inexpensive drone. It has a very low megapixel camera, and I can't charge people a lot of money for that. So this is a situation where equipment does play a role. I think down the road, it won't have as much of an effect because everybody will be like cameras. You can get a nice Rebel with a great sensor and create some beautiful images, and you can have an $8,000 camera that creates beautiful images. But are you going to charge that much more? In some cases, obviously, but it depends more on the production, is personally the way I would approach that versus the type of camera you have. But when it comes to drone photography, we're still in the phase where, one, the quality of the image that comes out of that drone, your skill and experience as someone who is using a drone and creating imagery, whether it's film or stills, all that stuff does play a role and can play a factor in how much you charge. Some drone photographers go by the hour, $150, $200, $500 an hour. You can go by the project. You can go per image. I mean, it also depends on what do you have to do after you create those images. How much post-production is involved? And these are all things you have to consider. How far do you have to travel to create this work? I mean, do you have to be on site for a certain amount of time? I mean, the environment, the weather. I mean, your skill, if there are a lot of people around, if it's a situation like that versus being out in the middle of the mountains, two different animals here, because if something goes wrong and you crash into a crowd of people, that takes some skill to make sure that doesn't happen. Things like that. There are many different elements that we're not always thinking about. It's similar to aerial photography, but it's still its own genre of photography. And there are a lot of things that you need to consider related to that. But back to the cost of doing business. You need to understand that. You have to consider the value of that drone too as part of your cost of doing business, the cost of replacement, repairs, and of course the skill level in terms of creating and the post-production of those images. So those are all things to think about when it comes to drone photography. All right. Next question is how to increase client rates. That is a great question, and quite often the way I go about it, some clients you can say, hey, at the beginning of the year, you can warn them, always communicate with clients. That is such a key to getting, moving forward in your photography business, is asking questions and letting people know what's going on, being very upfront. And you can say, look, I'm increasing my rates by 20% the first of the year. If they balk, then back off. Don't lose a client over that. But it doesn't mean you can't increase your prices by 20% for all of your new clients. So that's the way I approach it. I look, give some signals and see what their feedback is. And they say, well, yeah, we're just going to have to start bidding everything out then. I'm like, okay, I hear you. Well, let's keep our fine relationship as it is. That's okay. I mean, but, if you're losing money, then you're going to have to do it anyway, right? I mean, that sometimes we have clients that we bid way too long, a long time ago, and you're still trying to keep them happy. But if you're losing money, you're just going to have to say, okay, look, you got a great deal years ago in the beginning of my photography career. I got to up it by 50%, 100% just to keep it going. I appreciate the referrals. If they're a great referral source, there's a lot of factors you need to consider. The value of the client isn't necessarily the day of the assignment. It's, how good are they at referring you? How easy are they to work with? I mean, sometimes you have a little penalty for being a tough client to work with. I know that's kind of, anyway, I know photographers who do it. It's like, this client is so hard to work with, there's a client penalty on them. So, but good clients the good client is someone who refers you and appreciates your time. That's a good client who appreciates what you're doing, appreciates your time, who you are, what you do. And so that's definitely something to think about. All right. Last question I have on my list. So those of you who are here, and if you have any questions, feel free. I have a couple more topics afterwards, but I have my last question from the internet. Let's see. How do you get known to charge more? So in other words, why does one photographer charge $10,000 a day and another photographer has trouble finding a client who will pay $500? Now, sometimes it has to do with where you're located, your city. Sometimes, the cost of doing business. I mean, that's just part of it. But, 90% of the time, it's your brand. And your brand is your reputation. And how you build that brand. And a lot of times, the difference is people asking for it. Now, a lot of times people won't go to that level because they think I'm going to lose more jobs and more opportunities. And they're right. However, you have to remember this mindset. Someone who's willing to pay for $10,000 for a really good photographer, which may be you, has friends and knows other people who are willing to pay $10,000 for a photographer too. Someone who pays $500 for a photographer, there may be more of them, and they will be happy to refer you to those other people who need a $500 photographer. So it's a branding element. It's the risk you take in terms of asking and your positioning in the marketplace. Is there any good reason? I've talked about it recently, last year, where my studio mate was up against a $50,000 a day photographer. He didn't win the job. The person did not win the job. My studio mate did, and I think it was, it was about $5,000, I think, or so, in that range. That's not the exact number, but the point being is he was the 10th of that photographer's price. Well, how dare that photographer charge $50,000, right? No. They ask all the time. They just keep asking. Say, if you want me, it's $50,000. That's it. And they're going to get bites because there are people who want them, and they know that is the value of that photographer because they perceive that value. So it's all that perceived value. So how can they do that? Well, are they any better than anyone else? Well, these certainly may have some skills. These certainly may bring something specific to the table. They may have a higher production, a bigger team. There are a lot of reasons why, and you certainly do need to bring that value to the client if you're going to charge those high prices. But there are a lot of things you can do, and a lot of times it is purely the reputation. So, that's how do you get known? Getting known, well, you can check out the other channel. My other channel is Business and Marketing, and that's the YouTube/Rosh Sillars. And then this one is YouTube/Rosh Sillars Photographer. And that's where I talk about pricing here. So if you want to know more about that, I got a ton of videos over there. So will not talk about branding here. Of course I will, because that's part of increasing your price. That's a big part of it. But yeah. Okay, I think we are through our questions. The last couple things I want to share with you is that I will have some videos later this week, of course. Different, a little bit different. I'm going to have some, I think one of the videos is going to be more on that branding topic and how you can increase your rates. That is a question we're getting a lot here. And if you have specific questions related to any of this stuff, put it in the comments below. And if you're checking this out on the replay and you're not a subscriber, make sure you do so. I always appreciate that. And I always appreciate when you guys share these videos. It really does help improve, I think, the knowledge we share here helps improve the photography community. We're so saturated now. That's fine. Ignored. It makes competition irrelevant now. It really does. Competition is irrelevant. All you have to do is focus on you, staying in business, making good pricing decisions, good business decisions, develop your brand so people are willing to pay your price, your reputation, and that's all you can concern yourself about. You know, other photographers are there for inspiration, learning how to, good business practices and bad business practices. We see them all the time, but why waste your time always being mad about people who are undercutting? You're not going to get the clients that most of the time that they're going after anyway. So just stick with the market level that you want to be at and work really hard to get there. Business is not easy. Business is not easy. That's why we come here to develop that support system. And this is a support system for you. And let's grow our photography community solid. Keep it as healthy as we possibly can. And I'll talk to you next week on Monday. Have a great week.